It was 3:00 a.m. when my husband texted me. "Where are you?" I sat in the recovery room of the Women's Health Center, too drained from the pain to type much. "We'll talk when I get home." When I walked through the door, James was at his computer, diligently editing a video from a party. "I ended the pregnancy," I said, "and I'm being transferred overseas the day after tomorrow. Take tomorrow off so we can go to Maple County Courthouse and finalize the divorce." He didn't even look up. He just hummed a vague, absent-minded response. I knew instantly he had turned his hearing aid off again. For 6 years, I used to chatter away, sharing every mundane detail of my day with him. I had eagerly planned our future together. I must have sung over 300 love songs to him over the years, and in the end, not a single lyric ever truly reached his ears. I was so incredibly tired. I walked up behind him and flicked the switch on his hearing device. He frowned, immediately turning defensive before I could speak. "What are you doing? The battery is low, and I left my charger at the office. I'm taking tomorrow off to go to the Starlight Lounge with Chloe to hear her sing. Don't waste my battery." I nodded and switched it back off for him. "Let's just part in silence then." A moment later, James switched the device back on himself. "Forget it. I'll just grab the charger from the office tomorrow morning. What did you want to say?" I didn't answer. I walked over to the sofa, sat down, and dry swallowed the painkillers the doctor had prescribed with a sip of cold water. James finally looked away from his screen, glancing at me. "Why are you taking pills?" "Vitamins," I lied. He nodded. "Did the doctor say anything? I would have gone to the hospital with you if I wasn't so busy today." It was always like this. James had zero credibility left with me. Like our last vacation, he promised he'd take me to the coast. I booked the flights, planned the itinerary, and then Chloe claimed some creepy guy was following her home from work. James threw a lump sum of cash at me to brush me off and spent his entire month of PTO acting as her personal bodyguard. I could overlook a canceled trip, but he applied the exact same disappearing act to my birthdays and our wedding anniversaries. Whenever I asked, it was always because Chloe had an emergency. He never took my words seriously. Half the time, he couldn't even be bothered to listen. But the moment Chloe spun some bizarre, dramatic excuse, he treated it like a royal decree. For the longest time, I didn't understand it. We were all adults. How could he lack such basic judgment? It was only later I realized it had nothing to do with whether he believed her or not. It was simply a matter of who he loved. When a man loves someone, she could call the sky the ground and the grass red, and he would still bend over backward to turn her nonsense into absolute truth. "Never mind. Let's just go to sleep," I said. "At your last physical, the doctor said your thyroid nodules were growing. He told you to stop staying up late." Before he even finished his sentence, James switched his hearing aid off again. He waved a hand, gesturing for me to leave him alone. I suddenly laughed. I laughed at my own knee-jerk reaction. After all these years, I was still hardwired to care about him. I walked into the master bedroom and locked the door behind me. By the time I finished filling out my overseas transfer paperwork, it was 6:00 a.m. The sky was bleeding from pitch black to pale gray. Outside in the living room, the clacking of the keyboard had been replaced by the sound of a voice call. Even through a locked wooden door and the phone's speaker, I could hear Chloe's booming voice. And there was James, patiently listening to her plan out her itinerary for the day. I buried my head under the covers and let the exhaustion pull me under. Yesterday, my hospital visit was supposed to be a doctor's appointment. When I woke up and saw the dark, heavy clouds rolling in, I looked at James, who was sitting on the edge of the bed scrolling through his phone. "It looks like a storm is coming. Drive me to the hospital, will you?" Silence. I assumed he had turned his hearing aid off again, but when I looked closer, the little indicator light was on. He was just too engrossed in his text messages to acknowledge I had spoken. I snatched the phone out of his hands. On the screen, a contact saved as Princess Chloe was begging him to come to her pajama party tonight. Knowing James absolutely despised loud, chaotic environments, I typed a reply for him, not going. James lunged, snatched the phone back, and frantically deleted the message. I told you to drive me to the hospital for my checkup, I repeated. When? He asked, not looking up. This afternoon. He tapped furiously on his screen. No response. Just as my temper began to flare, James suddenly chuckled and held the phone up to my face. Chloe says she invited a bunch of our old college friends over. She wants us to head to her place for lunch. I'll take you to the hospital after we eat. But at the lunch table, Chloe sweet-talked James into doing shots, glass after glass. Watching them made my stomach turn. I barely touched my food before standing up and announcing I needed to get to the hospital. Just reschedule the checkup, James slurred slightly. I'll take you in a few days. He had no idea how hard it was to get these appointments. No, I said flatly. He offered to call me a cab. I declined. He nodded and told me to be careful on the way. Not a single person at that table offered to even walk me to the front gate of the neighborhood. I walked with my umbrella tilted against the wind, the slanted rain soaking my pants all the way up to my knees. It took me forever just to find the main exit. And then, as if the universe was mocking me, the traffic was gridlocked. I missed my appointment slot and had to wait as a walk-in. Right next door, the Women's Health Center's waiting room was completely empty. I eventually wandered over, sat down in the quiet, and stared up at the sign reading Women's Health Services, lost in thought. By the time evening rolled around, James hadn't called. Usually, if I was out this late, my phone would be ringing off the hook. Today, nothing. I actually thought my phone was broken, but when I unlocked it, the first thing I saw was James's new Instagram story. He was at the pajama party. Chloe was wearing a flimsy little camisole, her slender arms wrapped tightly around his neck. His hand rested completely naturally on her waist. I zoomed in on the photo. His wedding ring was gone. I dialed his number. Chloe picked up. She scoffed, telling me I was being annoying and ruining the vibe. I only asked one question. Where is James's ring? Oh, he let me play with it for a bit. She paused, feigning innocence. I think it fell into the sofa cushions. I don't know, I'll look for it after everyone leaves. She hung up on me. Down the hall, a nurse was calling my name. Emily, is Emily here? I took 2 steps toward the prenatal wing, then stopped. I turned around. Do I need an appointment for the procedure? I asked the front desk. No, ma'am. Good, sign me up. A burst of laughter jolted me awake. I grabbed my phone. 7:30 a.m. My head was throbbing from the lack of sleep. I reached blindly into my nightstand drawer for my headache pills. Empty. I had reminded James at least 5 times to pick some up, and he still forgot. It took a while for the dizziness to fade enough for me to get out of bed. I opened the door and saw James making breakfast in the kitchen, with Chloe happily playing sous chef beside him. Pour Emily some coffee, James told her. Chloe breezed over to the cabinets and seamlessly picked out my specific mug from a dozen others. She poured the water and handed it to me. How do you know which one is mine? I asked. She skipped back to the cabinets, digging around. Because I'm here all the time. Whenever you go on business trips, I come over to hang out with James. She pulled James's mug down next. Then she stood on her tiptoes, looking confused. James, where did you put my cup? James pointed at the dishwasher with his spatula. In there. I told you, stop tossing it in the sink when you're done. You have to wash it and let it dry before putting it back. Otherwise, I have to sterilize it for you every single time. Chloe grabbed her ridiculous cartoon mug, shimmied over to James, and affectionately rubbed her cheek against his arm like a cat. But I'm lazy. That's why I leave it all to you. James raised the spatula, pretending he was going to bop her on the head. You're going to die of laziness one day. They were so naturally intimate it was as if they were the married couple. I stood there, holding my mug, feeling the warmth of the water slowly seep out through the ceramic until it was ice cold. I had never seen James like this. When it was just the two of us, he barely spoke. At dinner, I would scroll through my phone while he read the news. Then we'd go to work. Routine. Lifeless. "Do you want your eggs fried or boiled?" James asked me, carrying a small skillet out of the kitchen. Chloe plopped down into the chair next to me and shot her hand into the air. "Chef James, I want both. You know I love eggs." James chuckled, sliding the food into her designated bowl. Then he looked at me, the woman who had spoken exactly one sentence all morning. "And you." I pressed my lips together, my fingertips absent-mindedly tracing the faint red patches on my arm. It had only been 2 weeks since my last severe allergic reaction. "I'm allergic to eggs. Did you forget?" James froze. Guilt flashed across his face. He quickly scraped the rest of the eggs into his own bowl. "I'll make you something else." "Don't waste your time," I cut in flatly. "Aren't you in a rush to get to the office for your charger? Take your time eating. Have fun today." With the air sucked out of the room, James didn't dare sit down. He stood there holding the skillet, caught in an awkward limbo between the table and the kitchen, quietly studying my face. I offered him a hollow smile. "Can I help you?" No. James ate his breakfast, looking completely distracted. In the past, a situation like this would have ended in a screaming match. If he tried to run, I would have chased him all the way to his office. Once, when he felt cornered, he called me a hysterical drama queen. The tears had spilled out of me instantly. I had grabbed his collar, sobbing, "Is this my fault? How is any of this my fault?" I yelled until I couldn't catch my breath, stripping away every ounce of my own dignity. And when I finally looked up, James was just staring at me with blank, apathetic eyes. He had turned his hearing aid off minutes ago. His utter calm only made me look crazier. But even if he couldn't hear me, couldn't he see the tears streaming down my face? They were splashing onto the floor in heavy drops. How did none of that penetrate his heart? After that day, I never fought with him again. I thought it through. I accepted it. And slowly, surely, I stopped loving him so much. After breakfast, James went to the bedroom to change. He walked out a few minutes later, holding a dress shirt. "Honey, where are my ties?" I pointed toward the balcony. "There's a pile over there, take your pick." He stood in front of me, not moving. I finally looked up. "What?" "The tie," he said, looking incredibly uncomfortable. Are you not going to tie it for me?" "You have hands," I said. "All right." He was so used to me picking out his clothes, matching his ties, even selecting his cufflinks for the day. I always made sure he looked sharp and appropriate for whatever meetings he had. I'm actually a very casual person by nature. I only forced myself to become this meticulous, perfectly tailored wife after we got married, organizing his ties by color gradient, ironing and hanging his shirts, keeping his wardrobe up to date with the latest trends. "I can't get it right," he muttered, fumbling with the silk. "Help me." I stood up and took the tie from him. I looped it around his collar, yanked it up tight, and nearly choked him. "James, you can't keep depending on me like this," I said quietly. "What if I leave one day?" James didn't take my words seriously at all. He brushed past me and waved at Chloe. "Let's go." "Take me with you," I said. I needed to swing by the pharmacy for more headache pills. Both of them turned to look at me, one with sheer resentment, the other with deep annoyance. "Relax, I'm not going to ruin your date," I added. I glanced at the shoe rack by the door. Sitting right in the prime spot was a brand new pair of fuzzy slippers. Winter was months away, but James had already prepped a cozy pair for Chloe. I looked away, pulled out my own shoes, and put them on. "You can drop me off on the way. Let's go." James and Chloe walked ahead of me, laughing and gossiping about the pajama party. Who chose Dare, who drank too much and made a fool of themselves. When we reached the car, Chloe bypassed the back doors and slid directly into the passenger seat. She reclined it, draped a little fleece blanket over her legs, and yanked open the glove compartment. She completely trashed my perfectly organized lipsticks and sunscreens just to fish out her compact mirror. James looked at me awkwardly, lowering his voice. "Why don't you?" "I'll sit in the back," I volunteered. He visibly exhaled in relief. The car drove smoothly down the avenue. James's hands rested on the steering wheel. Still no diamond ring. "Did you find the ring?" I asked suddenly. The car jerked slightly. James didn't say a word. Chloe, meanwhile, was reviewing the video James had edited for her. When it hit the highlight reel, she let out a piercing squeal. "Oh my God." A noise that loud, fed directly into a hearing aid, gets infinitely amplified. It can cause a screeching feedback loop that makes your skull feel like it's splitting open. That was why James hated noise. Even when I spoke to him, I had to keep my voice below a certain decibel level. But with Chloe screaming right next to his ear, his expression didn't even twitch. Only his hands, gripping the wheel, trembled slightly. "James, you are amazing," Chloe cheered. "I love you to death." James forced a smile. "As long as you like it." Between the two of them, my question was buried and forgotten. Whatever. It didn't matter. It was just a ring. I was about to throw mine away anyway. After buying the medicine, I asked the pharmacist a few more questions about managing my headaches. By the time I stepped out of the pharmacy, it had started to rain, and the downpour only showed signs of getting heavier. I huddled under the awning, hoping to wait it out and catch a cab home. Instead, the storm raged from 10 in the morning until 10 at night, with no end in sight. The city's drainage system practically collapsed. Taxis stopped running, and buses were stranded. The floodwaters rose higher and higher, swallowing the streets until the water reached my calves. My skirt was completely soaked, and the freezing cold seeped into my abdomen, making my surgical wounds ache sharply. I sent James a text. "Where are you? Can you take me home? The flooding out here is really deep." The messages vanished into the void. I called him nearly 20 times. He didn't pick up a single one. Gritting my teeth, I waded into the freezing water, slowly trudging in the direction of our apartment. Suddenly, my foot slipped, an open manhole. Splash. Foul water instantly swallowed me over my head. I thrashed in the dark, my head bobbing above and below the surface, until a hand suddenly grabbed me and hauled me out. If it weren't for her, I really might have died in that sewer. The girl pulled me onto her inflatable raft. "Where do you live? I'll take you back," she offered. It was the dead of night by the time I finally reached the apartment. Enduring the double agony of my splitting headache and throbbing abdomen, I took a hot shower and immediately passed out on the rug. When I woke up, it was 2:00 a.m. The rain had stopped outside, but two distinct voices laughing in the hallway cut through the quiet. "I carried you the entire way. You're going to kill me," James's voice teased. "Hurry up and get down." Chloe giggled coquettishly. "No, I want you to carry me forever." The front door opened, and the lights flicked on. James kicked his muddy shoes outside. Even with his pants rolled up high, they were still completely drenched. Chloe, however, was spotless and dry. They naturally and intimately shared a single towel to wipe their faces, completely failing to notice me sitting in the living room. "It drizzled a bit. Are you still wet?" James asked, pulling her close to check. "Hold on, let me find you a dress." He walked into the master bedroom and came out holding an armful of my clothes. "These are Emily's. Pick whatever you like." James knew perfectly well how much I hated people touching my things. Chloe immediately plucked out the red dress. "I want this one." It was the dress James had bought me for our wedding anniversary. I hadn't even brought myself to wear it yet, and here he was, generously offering it up for her to play dress-up in. "Tonight was so much fun," Chloe chirped like a happy little bird. Looking at her, I couldn't help but see my past self. The only difference was the response we received. James listened to her with a fond smile, unwilling to interrupt, acting as if missing a single word would be a tragedy. "Can you two keep it down?" I said, playing the killjoy this time. They both went dead silent. After a long pause, James finally offered an excuse, claiming Chloe's ground floor apartment was in danger of flooding, so he brought her here. I didn't reply. I just walked straight into my bedroom. I slept terribly that night. The two of them stayed up until dawn, chatting and laughing outside my door. The next morning, James and Chloe ate breakfast together and got ready to leave. "Honey, I'm going to drop Chloe off at home first," James said. "I'll come back and take you to work. Wait for me." I was never going to wait for James again. I packed my luggage, finally signed the divorce papers I had printed ages ago, but never had the courage to use, and left them on the dining table, pressed down beneath my abortion discharge summary. James would see it the second he came back. I took a cab to the airport, went through security, and boarded my flight. Over the intercom, the flight attendant reminded passengers to switch their devices to airplane mode. I pulled out my phone, just about to turn it off, when a tidal wave of messages exploded onto my screen. "What is this stuff on the table? Emily, are you insane? Are you lying to me? Text me back. Come home and let's talk about this. There has to be a misunderstanding. Stop being so impulsive. I am not signing this divorce agreement. I want you to talk to me face to face and explain exactly why you're doing this." I couldn't help but find it absurd. Even now, James hadn't realized his own mistakes. He was still pinning all the blame on me. I let out a soft sigh and powered down my phone. The plane accelerated down the runway, the roar of the engines drowning out everything else. Leaning against the window, I watched the city lights shrink until the familiar skyline vanished entirely. That morning, after dropping Chloe off, James figured Emily was in a bad mood, so he drove all the way to the Northwood district to buy her favorite blueberry pancakes. Pushing open the front door, he expected to find Emily exactly where she always was, sitting obediently on the sofa, waiting for him. Instead, he searched the entire apartment and found it completely empty. Where did she go? James checked his watch. It was still early. Did she really storm out just to throw a tantrum? The pancakes were getting cold. He sat at the dining table, eating while texting Chloe. Emily threw a fit and left. I should have just driven her first. Chloe replied almost instantly, "Huh, she's being so petty." "Chloe, you were going to drive her anyway. It's just a matter of who went first. Holding a grudge over that is way too much." "Chloe, see, I'm much better behaved, aren't I?" "Chloe, we're just best friends. Her paranoia is out of control. James, you need to talk to her. Are married men not allowed to have freedom? Do you have to revolve your entire life around her?" James replied absent-mindedly. "Hard to say. She's just stubborn and I don't want to fight with her. It's probably just pregnancy hormones making her unstable. I'll just have to be more accommodating for a while. Don't take it to heart, Chloe." A long time passed without a reply. She was likely pouting because she didn't get the answer she wanted. James washed down the last bite of his breakfast with some water. It wasn't until he set his glass down that he noticed the papers weighed down on the table. He pulled them closer. It was a divorce agreement. James froze, his mind going completely blank. His eyes scanned the bold letters at the top of the page over and over again, as if he had suddenly forgotten how to read. Then he flipped to the second document. The Women's Health Services notice. His hands began to shake uncontrollably. The papers fluttered to the floor as his heart hammered violently against his ribs. "Call her, right, call her to confirm." He dialed her number dozens of times in a row, but the tables had finally turned. Emily didn't answer a single one. When calling failed, James resorted to texting. His hands were shaking so badly he couldn't hold the phone steady, having to brace his elbows against the table and retype words multiple times just to hit send. Still no reply. James bolted into the master bedroom and yanked open the closet doors. It was practically empty. Her suitcase was gone, half her skincare products were missing from the vanity, and her favorite coats had vanished from the hangers. James crumpled to the floor. In that devastating instant, only one despairing thought echoed in his mind. Emily didn't want him anymore. James sat slumped on the freezing hardwood floor. He had always assumed Emily was gentle by nature, that no matter how much of a fuss she kicked up, she would ultimately stay right here in this house. He believed that no matter how much he neglected her, she would always be waiting in the exact same spot for him to turn around. He had taken her 6 years of meticulous, unwavering care completely for granted. He was used to the hot meals waiting for him every morning. He was used to his shirts and ties being perfectly paired and laid out. He was used to her putting him first, always yielding, always understanding. He treated her deep devotion as his birthright, brushing off her brightest, most eager hopes as trivial. He had turned a blind eye to every ounce of her silent suffering. It was only now, staring at an empty room, that it finally hit him. He had thrown away someone incredibly precious. With trembling hands, he dialed her number again and again, only to be met by the cold, mechanical voice of the carrier, stating the phone was powered off. The moment my plane landed, I turned my phone back on. The avalanche of notifications was so massive it completely froze my device. Unable to use Apple Pay and carrying no cash, I found a random seat in the terminal to wait for the phone to unfreeze. My gaze drifted out of focus. Couples walked by, families of 3 headed out on vacation, everyone bustling past with smiles on their faces. It felt like I was the only person who had arrived in this city carrying such a heavy heart. I thought back to the past, back when I was still incredibly clingy with James. No matter where I went, I'd report my day to him, what I ate for lunch, a pretty flower I saw on the street. I'd take photos of everything and send them all. And back then, James wasn't so dismissive. He would reply to every single message, reminding me to go easy on the spicy food, or telling me to stay away from the pollen so my allergies wouldn't act up. That was until Chloe came back from abroad. She seamlessly inserted herself into James's life, and by the time I noticed, they were already inseparable. James was always busy with work, and whatever little free time he had, Chloe monopolized. By the time he got to me, there wasn't a single second left to spare. At first, I was naive. I thought if I just treated him better, if I just pushed myself harder, he would see how special I was and cherish everything I did for him. Until one day, I realized something. When James was around me, he would secretly turn off his hearing aid. He thought my caring was nagging. Even when I stayed up late fixing his work spreadsheets until my migraines flared up, I memorized all his dietary restrictions, spending 6 years ensuring not a single harsh ingredient touched his stomach. I knew his hearing aid was sensitive to moisture and loud noises, so I kept our home dead silent, always speaking in soft, gentle tones. I never screamed or shrieked the way Chloe did. I couldn't warm his heart, and slowly my own heart grew cold until it was completely frozen. When someone doesn't love you, your docility is boring, your dedication is a burden, your grievances are dramatic, and your departure is just a childish tantrum. When would he finally understand? All of my sacrifices were built on the foundation of love, and he had killed that love with his own 2 hands. Now that I didn't love him anymore, what right did he have to demand I go back to that life? It was all over. I spent a few days resting in Silvercliff City. Once corporate handled my paperwork, I officially started at the new company. My desk was right by the window. The breeze carried the faint, sweet scent of osmanthus. As I immersed myself in this new environment, my mood steadily improved. I had been transferred as the general manager of the branch. Most of the team under me were young, and the office culture was fantastic. Every time we closed a project, we'd all go out for dinner to celebrate. And where there's a group of young people, there's always office gossip. "Emily, you're so gorgeous. Are you married?" one of the girls asked. "If not, I can introduce you to a total catch, my uncle's son, Cambridge grad." "Hey, back off, you're just trying to get on the boss's good side," another joked. "Emily is so successful, her line of suitors probably stretches all the way to France. She doesn't need your help." The table erupted into chatter. I couldn't help but laugh. "Wait, Emily, after all that, you never answered. Are you actually married?" I set down my wine glass, my fingertips lightly tracing the cool rim. I paused. But I should be divorced very soon. The day James finally gave up and signed those papers, I would be completely free. The younger girls exchanged awkward glances, and nobody pushed the subject any further. After the dinner wrapped up, I walked back to my apartment alone. The night air was chilly, so I pulled my coat tighter around myself, my steps a little floaty from the wine. Unbidden, James's face drifted into my mind. We had been out of contact for almost half a year. I had changed my phone number, deleted all my social media accounts, and even proactively blocked him on every new app I registered for. I had tried my hardest to drag myself out of that misery. Maybe it was because the past had been brought up tonight, or maybe it was just the alcohol, but for the first time in a long while, I felt a familiar pang of sadness. When would a genuine heart ever be spared from being taken for granted? Emily. I thought I heard James calling my name. Before I could even turn my head, I was engulfed in a tight embrace. I froze in place. The warmth of the hug, even the faint scent of his laundry detergent, was so terrifyingly familiar it made my heart pound. Emily, James called out again, his voice painfully hoarse. He sounded like a man who had suffered through countless sleepless nights, all his former arrogance ground down to dust. I shoved him away with everything I had. Taking a step back, the alcohol in my system instantly cleared. Only then did I get a good look at him. The street lamp cast a thin, pathetic shadow over him. In just half a year, he had lost a massive amount of weight, looking incredibly haggard. His eyes were webbed with dark red veins, a blue shadow of stubble covered his jaw, and his clothes were wrinkled and messy from long travel, a complete departure from the meticulous, impeccably dressed man he used to be. I lowered my eyes and pulled my coat tighter. My voice was flat, completely devoid of emotion. "Why are you here?" James stared at my distant, indifferent face. His chest tightened violently, a dense, suffocating wave of sorrow welling up, choking the words in his throat. "Looking for you," he choked out. "Emily, I've been looking for you for so long." "How could you leave so ruthlessly?" His voice trembled. "In your eyes was everything we had something you could just throw away. You didn't even leave me a chance to explain." I let out a soft laugh. I had changed my number, deleted my socials, and severed ties with every mutual friend we had. I had scrubbed him from my life cleanly, never expecting to run into him again. I thought our ending had been finalized on those signed divorce papers. "Just say what you came to say," I said coldly. "Otherwise, I'm going home." James grabbed my arm. "Emily, that agreement, I'm not signing it." "Of course." I felt zero surprise, only a deep sense of absurdity and exhaustion. I had saved up a lifetime of disappointment, and just as I finally walked off the stage, he decided to chase after me, desperately clinging to the empty shell of a marriage. "There's no point," I said. "I don't even want to look at you, let alone forgive you." "You blame me for not warning you," I continued. "James, I told you everything. You were the one who turned your hearing aid off. You refused to listen to me." "How is that my fault?" "We ended up here because of you. You built this ending with your own two hands." James's grip suddenly tightened. A faint throb of pain shot through my arm. "Turning off my hearing aid, that was my fault," he rushed to say, the words spilling out of him. I'll change everything. I swear, I will never ignore your feelings again. From now on, I'll actually listen to you. Really hear you, I swear." I remained completely silent. In stark contrast to my calm, James was frantic, bordering on sheer panic. "If you want to stay here in Silvercliff, I'll stay with you. I'll go back and quit my job immediately. I've completely cut ties with Chloe. I swear I will never contact her again. Emily, please just give me one more chance." Both of his hands grasped my shoulders, forcefully turning me to face him directly. "Emily, you're just angry. You're just feeling wronged, aren't you? Give me one chance to make it up to you, and we can start over, okay? 6 years together. It can't just vanish into thin air." A long silence stretched between us. James's panic visibly grew. In the quiet of that alleyway, I could clearly hear his heart pounding against his ribs. Just one word from me. One gesture. It felt like his heart would burst right out of his chest. "James, I'm not angry," I finally said. "I'm exhausted. I just don't love you anymore. I don't need you to change, and I don't need you to make anything up to me. I just need you to let me go." He stood completely frozen in place. As if struck by lightning, his lips parted slightly, staring at me for a long time without regaining his senses. I could see the violent storm of agony swirling in his eyes. After a long while, James finally spoke, his voice completely hoarse. "You don't love me. How could you not love me anymore? Emily, 6 years. You used to say you'd be with me forever. You remember everything I like," he rambled incoherently. "Your photo gallery is full of pictures of me. Emily, you do love me. You must be lying to me." He stared deep into my eyes. He was desperately trying to find even a single trace of reluctance or softness in them. But there was absolutely nothing. "You really don't seem to understand plain English," I laughed. "I said get lost, stay as far away from me as possible. Don't ever show your face in front of me again. It makes me sick." I thought that by making myself so brutally clear, James would finally take the hint and back off. Instead, he vanished for exactly 3 days. He had gone back to his old company, resigned from his job, and planned to move here permanently to be with me. "Ms. Emily, that gentleman sent something over again today." The receptionist handed me a familiar thermos. I glanced out the front doors. James was standing by a tree, awkwardly averting his gaze when he saw me looking. He said, "It's that homemade chicken noodle soup you love." The thermos was the exact same one we used to have at home. He really was going to tremendous lengths just to make me feel a pang of nostalgia. "Throw it away," I said. The receptionist blinked in shock. "Huh. From now on, don't accept anything he brings, and ideally, don't even let him step foot inside the lobby." With that, I turned around and stepped into the elevator. When it was time to clock out, I walked into the lobby, and the receptionist quickly called out to stop me. "I threw it away for you." But that gentleman went to the trash and dug the thermos back out. "It's just, I saw him crying. Do you think he'll be okay?" Her expression shifted, her eyes filled with concern. "Ms. Emily, is he some kind of stalker harassing you? Should we call the cops?" I shook my head. "It's fine. Once James realizes he's just humiliating himself over and over, he'll give up." But I severely underestimated his stubbornness. Aside from stubbornly delivering food every single day, he would stand guard outside the building until I got off work. Perhaps my words that night really had cut him deeply. James didn't dare approach me. He only followed from a distance. I couldn't be bothered to care anymore. I treated him like an annoying fly. As long as he didn't disturb me, it was fine. However, my indifference gave him a glimmer of false hope, until a week later, he intercepted me right at the company entrance. He carefully held out a small paper bag. "I heard you've had a bad cough lately. I went to the boutique apothecary and had them make these special herbal throat drops for you." He paused, then added a sentence. "I queued up all night to get these. Please take them." I glanced at the logo on the paper bag. It was true that the pharmacy was incredibly famous, with people traveling from all over the country just to get their herbal remedies. It was notoriously difficult to get an appointment. It likely took far more than just pulling an all-nighter in a line to secure these. I ignored him, sidestepping him to walk straight toward the entrance. James hurriedly chased after me, clutching the paper bag. "Just take it. It's not anything expensive. It's just a token of my care. I'm not trying to use it to ask you for anything, A fly buzzing constantly in your ear truly is infuriating." Irritated, I shoved him away. James stumbled back a few steps, losing his grip on the bag. The round lozenges spilled all over the ground. His eyes instantly reddened. "Clean this mess up," I said, furrowing my brow. You can't litter outside the office building. After 2 consecutive months of groveling, without gaining a single inch of leeway, James completely broke down. He abandoned all sense of dignity, writing me letters and begging my coworkers over and over to deliver them to me. Unfortunately for him, nobody was willing to help. Lately, work had been incredibly busy, and I often just slept on the couch in the break room overnight, giving James even fewer opportunities to see me. An autumn torrential rain arrived without warning. Heavy clouds pressed down over the city, and by late afternoon, the rain poured down in sheets. James knelt right in the middle of the deluge, facing the direction of my office. His thin, dark dress shirt was already thoroughly soaked by the storm. It clung tightly to his gaunt frame, highlighting just how fragile and emaciated he had become. The moisture on his face, impossible to tell if it was rain or tears, dripped continuously from his jawline. My colleagues gathered by the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching the spectacle unfold. "That's Ms. Emily's guy, right? He's been kneeling there for almost 2 hours. With rain this heavy, he's going to get sick if he stays out there. He's so stubborn, showing up every day. Can't he see she wants absolutely nothing to do with him? He looks like he can barely stay upright. He's swaying so much. Should we get security to help him up?" Emily hasn't said a word. We shouldn't meddle. The cold autumn rain chilled to the bone. James felt as though he was submerged in ice water. His entire body shivered uncontrollably, yet his forehead burned with a fever. Blood seeped from his scraped knees, only to be washed away by the relentless rain. He was on the verge of collapsing. He gritted his teeth and viciously pinched his own thighs just to force himself to stay conscious. He stubbornly kept his head raised toward my office, foolishly attempting to win even a fraction of my pity by torturing himself. I ignored the ridiculous farce. I remained in my chair, diligently focusing on my work. Only after I had delegated all my tasks did I stand up and walk over to the water cooler by the window. "Emily, do you want me to have security chase him away? I feel like if he stays out in the rain much longer, he might actually die." Only then did my gaze lightly drift down to where James was kneeling. His head hung low, his shoulders completely slumped, making it impossible to tell if he was still awake or had passed out. He had endured for too long, pushed himself too hard. From dusk until the dead of night, 4 whole hours, completely ignored by everyone. The strength holding his body up was entirely depleted. As a violent wave of dizziness hit him, James's stiff body suddenly pitched forward. Unable to hold on any longer, he collapsed face first onto the cold, flooded steps and lost consciousness. He passed out. A gasp echoed from my colleagues behind me. "Get him to the hospital, quickly." I took a sip of hot water, watching indifferently as a few male colleagues hauled James into a car, disappearing from view. I checked my watch. It was getting late, time to head home. The next day, I didn't see James waiting by the familiar flower bed. That torrential rain became our final goodbye. He finally went back, realizing with absolute certainty that I would never forgive him in this lifetime, and accepted it in utter, helpless despair. Eventually, I received the signed divorce agreement in the mail from James. I flipped through the pages and noticed he had added an extra clause. He was walking away with nothing, leaving all the assets to me. I folded the papers neatly and put them away, letting all the love and hate from the past be locked away in the bottom drawer of my desk, right alongside them. From this day forward, all I wanted was my freedom. This is Listening Novel. We appreciate you spending your time with us. If you enjoyed today's story, please like and subscribe for more stories, and stay tuned for what's next.